Okay, since we're sharing strange things that have happened to each other, I was working as a security guard at the time. I was armed as I worked these shifts. I had a taser, a baton, the works. I have to make my bones in the company by doing an overnight patrol route. I catch the route that no one ever wants, which includes one haunted apartment building, an abandoned shopping center, and a fun little drive through a privately owned canyon in the foothills. Being the F&G, nobody warns me about any of this stuff. They just post orders, a car, and then they tell me to get a move on. I get to the apartment building and grab the keys to turn off the elevator and lock the laundry room, etc. The place is known locally for suicides and murders, and it's really, really old. While I'm on the ground floor, I lock up the laundry room at the end of the creepy hallway. No other doors in sight. I look down the hall real quick and then turn back. And then I hear a hello. I'm like, holy hell, where did you come from? When I turn back to where the hello came from, there is an olive-skinned girl who's around 18 to 20 years old. She has this long dark hair, and she is wearing what I can only describe as a long gray pillowcase with holes for a head and arms cut out. She is not wearing any shoes or socks either. She smiles at me. It's beautiful and also makes me feel sad. I don't know how to explain why I felt these feelings. I recover my composure and grin with a good officer friendly, good evening ma'am. I turn my head and shake the doorknob for the laundry room, and as I turn back to exchange further pleasantries with her, she is gone, just gone. The only door from the hallway is the laundry room that I just locked. The only way out of there is past me down a 30 to 40 foot hallway and back out into the building foyer. There is no place that she could have gone and disappeared. I freak out to myself for a second and then I make my way back down the hall, quite quickly too. I make it to the foyer and call the elevator and ride to the top before turning it off and locking it. That's the client's rules, not mine. This clunky old thing even had one of those old-timey accordion gates inside. I turn to start walking down the hallway to the stairwell. The door at the far end of the hallway is open. Not wide open, but just enough to see inside. I remember the client note to lock the door if I ever find it open. So I grumble to myself and curse whoever left it open because, have some manners. I stick my head inside the doorway to make sure the room is empty before closing it. The room is bare, it's hardwood floor, there is faded wallpaper. This single small window lets some moonlight in. I take a step into the room because I feel like someone is in there. I don't know how to describe how I knew it was just a feeling. I take another step in and grab my flashlight. It's literally a small studio with a single window, nothing else. I am freaking out all over because I never feel like this. I have never felt scared on a job. I look up at the ceiling and see a cross beam of building cutting across the room. As I stare up at it, I feel the sudden tightening feeling on my throat. I feel a wave of overwhelming despair crush my chest. I feel like a rope is constricting my airway. The room suddenly rushes into an icy cold feeling. I stumble backward, I catch my head on the doorframe and land on my ass out in the hallway. The door, which I had opened wide to look into the room, slams shut right in front of me and the lock clicks. Fuck that. I spiral down all 5 flights of stairs and out onto the street before I even know it. It's like I was on autopilot, just fleeing from that place. I turn to look up at the building. The dark-haired girl from the laundry hallway is looking down at me with a smile from the top floor room, backlit by a lamp. She turns away from the window, and then when she does, the light goes out. It took me an hour and a half and a pack of cigarettes to marshal myself into driving again. I just did not want to do that job after that. I talked to my friend in the company afterward and he apologized. He said he would have warned me if he knew that I got that route. All the old-timers know not to check the room. He said if it does get found open, there was a stick with a hook on it in a closet room down the hall to pull the door closed. No one ever tries to lock it. So after this, I'm thinking, screw me, I guess. I got the short end of the stick. A few weeks later, I have to do a patrol through that privately owned canyon I mentioned before. I actually did get warned by my work bro about this one. On this patrol, a firearm is required, which, doesn't really make sense, but sure. The road through the canyon comes off a suburban street. The canyon entry is blocked to the public by a chain link fence and this massive steel gate. It's literally like 20 feet tall, 40 feet wide, 3-inch fixed steel gate. Around the office, they refer to the place as Jurassic Park, which I think is kind of funny. The client demands armed guard patrol up to the dead end in the road and then all the way back down. The reason for this, the issue cited, is reports of prowlers, suspicious noises, and homeless people trying to get in and wandering around. Well, the thing is, they didn't exactly say homeless people. They used the term transients, but it was in quotation marks actually. On the briefing papers, that word was in quotation marks, so I should have known something was up back then. So, I go to the account. I open up the chain link and I drive in, and then I shut the chain link behind me. I muscle open the Jurassic Park gate and then start driving up into the canyon. Mind you, it's around 1 a.m., so it's completely pitch black. I am driving 5 miles per hour with my car lit up like I'm sending a signal to space. There are cliffs on one side of me and a rock face on the other. The road eventually opens up to an area with scrub woods on one side. I stare for a moment before realizing that the shape up ahead that I can see is a deer. And then behind this deer, there is a tunnel. It's this horrible, cramped looking thing with basically no room to maneuver. Once you start driving into that place, there is no place to turn and back out. You just have to reverse, and if something's quicker than how fast your car can reverse, you are fucked. So, I drive into the tunnel, my handgun in my lap at this point. I'm freaking out in my head. I drive out, and I think I hear a scuffle from round the bend in the road ahead. I can hear twigs snapping and leaves rustling along the road next to the car. I turn my spotlight towards a weird shadow that pops out for just a moment. I am just freaking out harder and harder and harder. I am just praying in my head that it's just a deer, just a regular, normal deer. What I actually see is the vague, shadowy shape of a humanoid. And when it hits the light properly, I can make out more of it. It had gray skin, beady eyes. It was wearing no clothing at all. It was almost a skeleton, with how little meat and skin was on the bones. Its head snaps up and shields its eyes from the spotlight before yanking this broken deer carcass behind the tree. I didn't even realize the deer was dead until it was being yanked away right in front of me. I open my door, pointed my gun, and scream for this thing to come back out, telling them I was security, that I was going to call the police, etc. But all I got in return was complete silence, so I got back in my car, and I drove back down to the Jurassic Park gate and called up my partner. My partner called up my boss. My boss calls me an idiot and then calls the client. The client demands my number from the boss and then calls me. He has me explain. After I finish explaining everything that happened to me, and by the way, I spared no detail, he got really excited, which was strange. I would have thought he'd have been pissed off that there was some random dude on his property, but he just gets really, really excited and tells me to lock the Jurassic Park gate and to get the hell out of there as fast as I can. So I think, okay, whatever you say. The client put the phone down, but he does not hang up right away. I hear some yelling down the phone before it clicks. He said something like, "The guard company found it, near the tunnel," and then the call just cuts off. At the end of the month, that client actually closed the contract and paid out any remaining fees and breach penalties like it was nothing at all. I ended up signing an NDA and getting a $500 bonus. And I also get called an idiot by my boss again. I went driving with my work buddy to find that Jurassic Park gate again around 6 months or so ago. When we pulled up, the gate was gone. Chain link fence was also gone. The road was just completely open. It cuts all the way from one road up through the tunnel and down into another neighborhood. I have no idea what actually happened there. Damn it, that job sucked. I hated working that place. Okay, here's a doozy story. I was driving a patrol route around 2 to 3 months after the Jurassic Park account incident. I get a call from my work buddy. He says he's working the other route that night and got a call from the boss that the alarm is going off at an abandoned strip mall that we service. I mean, screw it. Driving patrol sucks, so I'm rolling down there. I get there just after my buddy, let's call him Tiny, completely for irony's sake. Tiny waits for me to hop out of the car and unlocks the gate. This place must have had a space theme or something when they designed it. It was an all-white facade with curves and angles. It was a 2-story plaza with stairs, an elevator, and a walkway. Anyway, we go around, pull open a couple doors. Nothing's looking broken. Suddenly my phone rings, which startles us both. It's the boss. He literally yells, "What the hell did you do?" as soon as I pick up. All I did was pull on some doors, honest. He goes into this tirade about the client calling him, saying that the fire alarm is on, that the break-in alarm is triggered from all sensors, and that the elevator entrapment alarm is going off on his setup at home. The actual site where we are is completely dead quiet. My work buddy gets on the phone and tells the boss to get off my back. Nothing is going on. The client's system must be messed up. He hands me back the phone, and the boss says he does not care. If anything is broken, I am fired. He hangs up on me. I start taking pictures as my work buddy opens the security/breaker closet. The elevator at the end of the walkway dings and opens. It's pitch black inside the elevator car. We both shine our flashlights into the car. The lights do not break the dark. I can't even see the back of the car. Tiny actually draws his gun. He walks towards the elevator with it hanging down by his leg. I say his name real slow with a question mark at the end of it as I draw my weapon too. I'm a little confused as to what's going on with him and why he's on such high alert, especially since earlier he thought everything was just a system error. Just as he's about to step into black void where the elevator car should be, the cell phone rings again, and he snaps out of whatever funk, pull, or fugue state he was in. He literally jumps 3 feet in the air and yells out in shock. He retreats away from the elevator, pointing his gun. The elevator door slams shut, and the elevator dings. The display on the elevator showed that it was descending to the basement. Tiny looked really pissed off and says, "That thing tried to eat me." He waves for me to follow and run downstairs to the basement. He did not explain at all what he meant by what he said. The elevator is waiting, doors closed. He hits the open button and then steps back, his gun leveled. The doors ding open and it's just a black, gaping maw that sucks up our flashlights. I'm at nope factor 10 and shaking like a leaf. Tiny pulls a chem light stick out of his thigh pouch. Don't ask me. This dude carried a knife, a lighter, chem lights, a tourniquet, a first aid kit, and an extra magazine in this rig that he had on his thigh. He was a total mall ninja, until he produced exactly what you needed every single time, and then you thanked your lucky stars that you had him. He cracks it, gives it a shake, and then underhands it in. There was no thud from it hitting the back wall. There is no sound at all coming from that elevator. The light just disappears instantly, like it's sucked up and absorbed. The elevator dings and the doors shut again. Tiny races over and slaps the button to call it open again, and then he returns to his stance. Ding. The doors roll open. It's fluorescently lit. It's completely lit up. There is dark wood paneling, handrails, a white tile floor. The elevator car greets us. What is extra strange is we looked around, and there was no trace of that chem light in there anymore. And the elevator had not gone to a different floor, so that was really weird. I'm just like, what the hell? Tiny is the same. He puts away his gun and scratches his head. He is beyond his depth as we peek our heads inside. I look up and spot a small camera in the corner and suggest looking at the tapes. Like I said, we looked all around. The chem light was not there. We mosey our way back up to level 2 and take a look at the CCTV display. This is where it gets even weirder. It shows us walking around until the elevator doors open up. The feed from inside the elevator cuts to static just before the doors open. It comes back on later, probably when they opened up again with everything back to normal. The camera pointed down the hallway just shows me facing toward the elevator with the security room door opened up behind me. The camera pointed at the elevator shows the doors open on blackness, but the angle is tight enough that you cannot see Tiny. There is no camera pointed at the elevator in the basement. Tiny suggests I back up the footage further. Nothing's all over. The camera inside the elevator cuts out here and here, but nothing else. I suddenly remember the phone call that saved Tiny's ass. I check the cell phone. Missed call from boss, who, when called back, called me an idiot. We lock up, and Tiny goes to make a report to the client as usual. He does this via email. The elevator dings and opens up on inky blackness once again. We run back to the cars and take off. Tiny files a report that the alarms were triggered by a coyote that got in through the fence. The client buys the story. Every time there's an alarm after that, we yank the gates, pull the doors, and then just hightail it out of there. As long as the place did not burn down, we did not care. That client demoed the place the exact same year and built shitty apartments on the site. Seriously though, screw that job. Okay, so I also have a story that I cannot really explain. My daughter was hit by a truck while she was walking during rush hour at a very busy intersection. They thought she was dead when they loaded her for the hospital. Tons of people witnessed what happened, and many prayer circles were started at the scene. When I got to the hospital, the halls were packed with tons more people just praying. My daughter pulled through it, but she was in ICU for 3 days. I stayed with her for the entire time, except for about 3 a.m., when I would usually sign myself out of her room. She was a minor, and no one but hospital staff and myself were allowed in her room. A nurse sat outside her door around the clock. At 3 a.m. on the third morning, I told the nurse I was going outside to get some fresh air and have a coffee, and I signed myself out. I wasn't gone very long. The doctor would be in soon to check on her and give me an update. She had extensive damage, an open skull injury, a broken back in 9 different places, a severed liver and kidney, and she had to have both knees replaced. They did not know she would walk or talk again, or how much brain damage was done, if any. In those 3 days, she had not woken up or even moved. I came back in and signed the sign-in sheet and asked the nurse if the doctor had been in yet. She said no and pointed at the sign-in where my name was the only name on the list. Now, things get weird about here. As I walked in her room, I took her hand in mine and she woke up. She didn't ask, "Where am I? What happened?" or anything like that. She had a tube in her throat, but even with the tube in, she said, "Mommy, I saw Ricky, and he told me it was not time for me to come home yet, and to get back to you because you needed me, and he gave me this." She pointed to a porcelain angel that was sitting on the countertop in her room. Ricky was my husband, who passed away just 2 years before. He died of cancer at home, and his last words to me were, "I will tell you when it's time to come home." None of the kids were there to hear what he said to me. My daughter would never have known those words to say. It was just Ricky and myself, and I never told anyone what he said, so she could not have even heard it from a family member. It was a personal thing, not to be heard by anyone but me. Now, what my daughter said was shocking to me, but there was the angel. I did not know where it came from or who put it in her room. It was sitting there on the countertop in a shadow. Because of the risk of a brain infection, all of the flowers, stuffed animals, plants, etc. had been removed from her room. The hospital staff had a big empty room where all of her stuff was being kept in. So I asked the nurse, "Where did this come from?" pointing to the angel. "Was someone in her room?" She said no, I have not left since I signed in after my break at midnight, and no one has even been on the floor except for hospital staff, and I have been the only other one in her room except for you. But my daughter was awake and talking now, so the nurse called her doctor, and I was just so happy to hear my daughter talking and not showing any signs of brain damage. I just pushed everything else aside. My daughter didn't say she was in any pain, anywhere in her body. She didn't ask what happened. Here I am, nothing like that. She seemed at peace with everything, and I mean everything. The only thing she said was, "Ricky sees what we do, Mommy. He can see us." The doctor came in about then and saw the angel and told the nurse to get out of the room. But my daughter, still having the tube in her throat, said, "No, that's mine and you can't take it. It's the first angel I got from Ricky." The doctor could not believe that she was talking without any signs of brain damage, and with a tube in her throat. And not only was she talking, but she was asking for food. All the hospital staff were in her room drawing blood. The doctor ordered lots of tests, but she was fine. She wanted the tube out of her throat and something to eat. The same day they removed the tube, she did get to eat, and all of the test results came back fine. So they moved her to the pediatric unit. The next day they released her in a wheelchair. She did have to have a double knee replacement. All of her flowers, stuffed animals, and plants she donated to the children's hospital. All of them, except for the angel. 3 days later, she was finally home. She asked me to take her to a Wednesday night church service, so I loaded her up with her wheelchair and took her to the church, which was packed. That entire town thought that she was a miracle. I packed her in the center aisle. Halfway through the sermon, she said that she was tired and wanted to go home. I turned to get my bag, and all of a sudden, people were shouting out. I turned back and looked at my daughter, and she was walking toward the door on double knee replacements. I could not believe it. She was just walking like nothing had happened. But my daughter went back to school 2 days after that and never used that wheelchair ever again. She kept that porcelain angel for years, but whenever she would be going through a hard time, another small angel figure would show up, but never one as elegant and crafted as that. Usually like a stick or something even smaller, all different kinds over the years. We did not know where they came from, but one day, after a really bad time in her life, she found one of the angels in her safety deposit box, and she called me and said, "I remember Ricky could see us. All these angels are him showing me he's watching us." Now, let me tell you, we were not a religious family at all. We did not go to church or anything. So to us, it's just something that we cannot explain but I believe, I was there and I saw it. I heard it happen. Alright, Anons, here is my story. You probably will not believe it, and frankly, I do not care. So it goes like this. In the winter of 2012, my brother and I, who were two total slackers by the way, set off to begin our mandatory service. We left on December the 11th. We are from Russia, just so you know. This story is not about the army itself, so I will skip over the usual stuff. Just know that in November of the following year, when demobilization was finally near, we were suddenly sent on a mission to escort 60 missiles by train to some godforsaken spot near Khabarovsk. We were based in Yekaterinburg, and for those who don't know, that's about 6,000 to 7,500 kilometers away from Khabarovsk. We traveled by freight train, which, let me tell you, moves excruciatingly slow. It took us 30 whole days just to get there. The train had this terrible habit of stopping in the middle of nowhere, often in dense forests, far away from civilization. One of these stops was about 200 kilometers away from Omsk. Winter had hit hard, and it was freezing outside. Our boxcar barely protected us from the cold weather, so we had to light a stove for warmth. To do that, we needed firewood, and there was a wooden partition in the car that separated our little room from the rest. The doors, of course, stayed open so that we could quickly react if something went wrong. At the time, there was only two of us awake, me and Vanyuk, a quiet guy from Komi. He was a hard-working, no-nonsense country fellow. He didn't believe in superstition and was not afraid of the dark. We took turns chopping firewood so that we would not freeze. I was sitting in the closet, sipping tea and smoking, lost in thoughts about home. Meanwhile, Vanyok chopped wood in the other room. He was just humming happily. Then I noticed he had stopped, so I called out and asked if everything was okay. That's when he burst into the closet, slammed the door shut, bolted it, and backed away, holding the axe just above his head. His face was pale, like a ghost. His eyes were wide, and he looked terrified. I wasn't sure what to think. I felt uneasy. This guy was a big, strong guy, so if he was afraid, I felt like I should be afraid too. I asked him what happened. He just stared at me with those wide eyes and then pointed to the door, and then he pressed his finger to his lips, telling me to stay quiet. I just stayed silent and tried to hear, and I swear, I almost shit my pants because I heard this soft, childlike singing. I didn't hear knocks or footsteps, just the crackling of the fire and a faint voice singing words that I could not make out. We stood like that for 20 to 30 minutes, weapons in hand, staring at the door in complete silence. The train eventually moved on and the sound faded away. We searched the entire car with flashlights, but we found nothing. Vanyok told me that while he was chopping, he'd heard a sound like bulldogs breathing, and then the singing started up. That was the first weird encounter of the trip. So on that same route with the exact same people, we got stuck near Irkutsk, this time about 80 kilometers away. The train stopped, and in the distance, we could just make out a village and a road. We ended up stuck there for 2 full days. The first night was peaceful, no movement or shaking. Everything felt fine, but we still had to keep a guard outside. One of us always patrolling the train with a loaded machine gun, a bayonet knife in hand, pacing back and forth. The guard shifts changed every 2 hours. That first night passed without incident, but recalling what happened earlier, I still did not feel too comfortable walking around in the forest. I kept my bayonet knife ready, though I was not planning to use it unless I had to. I was angry and alert like a soldier should be. The only thing that actually bothered me was what sounded like a woodpecker relentlessly hammering at a tree near our car. In the morning, Vanyok reminded me that woodpeckers do not usually knock at night. They would be asleep. Maybe this one was a bit off, but it was on the second night that things took a turn for the worst. By evening, we were getting fed up with standing still and not knowing when we would be leaving. I decided to check with the train drivers about our delay. As I walked over, I overheard part of their conversation. One of them said, "I saw something run into the bushes, but the steps, no animal walks like that. I swear I saw something." My curiosity got the better of me, so I asked about it, and honestly, I wish I hadn't. The driver explained, "I went into the bushes to go and piss, and something ran off from them into the forest. It looked like a body, but it didn't move like any animal. I've hunted enough to know the difference. I couldn't see any head, literally just the body." That was enough to set me on edge. We kept talking for a little bit longer, and it became clear that we would not be moving until the morning. Later that night, I didn't just attach my bayonet knife to the machine gun. I also took the safety off, though I still did not chamber around. I was more scared of a mistake and hurting a friend than anything else. My first shift came around 8 p.m. It was not too dark, just cold and a little bit eerie. The second shift, however, was at 2 a.m. I was restless. I was still unnerved by the driver's story, but I tried to push the thoughts aside. I thought, who knows, maybe it was just a tall tale trying to mess with me. When I returned from my patrol, I saw Vanyok and we chatted for a while. He went back to the closet, and I turned to head back into the forest. That is when I saw it. Something humanoid standing in the bushes. It had a thin torso, long limbs, and huge eyes. It just stood there, staring at me. We locked eyes for what felt like forever. I don't know how I didn't piss my pants. It was like time just stopped. It was like I couldn't move or react or do anything. Then, I heard Vanyok calling my name, and suddenly, I was yanked back into the carriage by the collar. Inside the carriage, I immediately pointed my machine gun at the thing. But then it hit me. I had no ammo loaded up. I had no round in the chamber. It was only then that I remembered the chain of events. It was like I was in a trance and in a different world. Vanyok had seen me wander off and had come looking for me. He found the creature and rushed for my machine gun. While he held the thing at gunpoint, the lieutenant pulled me back inside. We stood there, all three of us, pointing guns at nothing, just waiting. Then it just vanished. The weird part, no one had loaded the machine gun, the safety was still on, and Vanyok did not even realize it. I know it sounds ridiculous, even now, but when I think back on it, the whole night feels like a strange, vivid dream. The smells, the sounds, everything, it all feels so dreamlike. Coupled with the fact that I did not even realize that I was about to wander off straight at this thing. I wonder if Vanyok did not shout for me. If he did not pull me back, would I have wandered off to this thing and died? I don't know. I have one more really short one. Not really as creepy, but more than once, we all saw a goblin. I'm not kidding. The first time I saw it was before dawn, out in the woods. I stepped out to check the train seals and saw a small figure about 30 meters away. It was barely taller than my waist. When I blinked and rubbed my eyes, it dashed off. My brother, who come out to gather firewood, swore that he saw some weird figure with really long legs jumping out of the moving train. It could have just been a glitch in reality, I guess.